This is, I want to welcome all of you on behalf of Logic and Stephen, who's not here, who usually does these welcoming remarks. And like I'm sure several other companies here, we are hiring. Um, so please feel free to approach me afterwards, or Nestor, or anyone you know that works in Logic if you're interested. Okay, so this is going to be a short and simple one, and I think it's going to be helpful for people that are familiar with Rails and even the ones who are getting familiar with it. It's about how I organize my Rails apps. Okay. So you've heard the term Rails is omopassive. You just put your models in app models, controllers, and controllers, etc. But there comes a point where you have other files and you don't know where to put them. And if you're like me, before I just dump them in the lib, and then the lib would be, after a while, get really large and hard to maintain. And I guess over the years, I've come to do a few things, but just for the ones who aren't familiar, so there's this, in your Rails application, there's a directory called app, and in there, I put application-specific code. So this is a sample. The models go in models, controllers and controllers, and you have the assets like JavaScript, CSS, your view templates and views, and jobs or workers in the app workers or app jobs. And then, if you have, let's say, even non-active record-backed models, well, I put them first in app models. But when I start to see a pattern, like maybe there are 2 or 3 or 4 of them named something underscore notification, then I create an app notifications folder. So all the notification classes go there. So what's lib for? So when I write things that I can use in other applications, so it's not specific to the application I'm working on. Maybe it's going to be a gem later. But you know, there's overhead. When you make a gem, you create a repository, nobody knows what's going to look yet. So I put it in lib or live first. And then, you know, maybe a month, 2 months later, I move it out and make it a gem. If another app, if I'm like, hey, okay, this other app could use what I wrote there, then it's probably time to make it a gem. And I guess, you know, for the ones who, since maybe that's 2014, but 2014 there was a lot of service-oriented architecture and all this stuff. And I also treat it the same way. I try to move them to different services at the latest point that I can. Because there's a lot of overhead also. Of course, there are other factors like team size and stuff. Vendor. The vendor folder has third-party libraries for some reason not installed by a gem. I think before in the old days when you install Rails plugins, so plugins are like gems, but before they were called plugins, they would be installed in the vendor directory. Normally, nowadays, I don't really touch this, except for the assets. So the assets, application-specific assets like the logo, that goes in app assets, right? If I have some assets that I create can be useful in another application, like a carousel or something, I'll put it in there. And assets that come from parties, let's say you download the carousel JS and the images and stuff, I put them in vendor also. Now, one thing is, I noticed there are some plugins you download that are mixed, like your images and there's JavaScript and CSS, and I get a little OCD, so I don't, and I don't want to split them up into their own, like I put the style sheets in style sheets, I put the JavaScript in JavaScript folder. I just make a plugins folder and then that's where it goes, so like carousel and then the version number. Specs, now I understand this might be specific to the testing library you use, so I won't go into too much detail. But if it's under app, meaning is it a model or controller, then you go under spec, controller, spec, workers. If it's not under app, then like it's in lib, then it's spec, lib, and then your file. And before we go into questions and answers and suggestions, I forgot one part. I also found like I create a lot of times service objects that act, that are functional. So you just pass it something and it spits out an answer back to you. And I put all of that in app services. Like, and then I name them like with verbs. I don't use nouns. Yeah. Yeah, because you run out of nouns. Everything will be called builder factory eventually. So like broadcast notifications, something like that. And that goes in app services. Well, that's it. So it's going to be short. But you guys have any questions and suggestions also? I mean, what do you do to organize your application?